Hi, everyone. Welcome to our episode 4, chapter 2, which is about winning. We're going to discuss and deep dive on company mechanics and leadership within this chapter. This is like Jack Welch discuss about how this leadership and company mechanics is important, and we want to discuss further how we have a lot experience it in Jake Beck. Over to you, Vlad. Give us more of your experience, and whether in JPEG or other experience when it's come to company mechanics and leadership.
So company mechanics, that's a very interesting subject. I mean, it's a big topic. I think no matter where you work at the end of the day, there are a few elements that need to stay with you as part of your leadership skills. And they are actually embedded in the company mechanics because you're part of a system or you're a part of an engine that needs to work. Everybody needs to more or less contribute to that. Um, so the first thing I learned when I joined Genpact, and I start with that again, example, I was doing my onboarding and we were sitting in a room with a larger group and we had like onboarding session with people from HR and so on. And we had a training and career session. And then the training leader came and asked in the group, guys, by the way, does every one of you know who your career manager is or who your training manager is? No, we haven't been told yet. We don't know. And they say, no, 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 no. You are your own training and career manager. So this is what people learn from day one, right? Take responsibility for your development because no one else will. If you want to grow, if you want to make it to the next level, you need to start looking around, talking to people, try to learn new things from new people. Besides, of course, the self-learning part and self-reading, self-development, and obviously trying to apply all what you learn in your day-to-day job. But this contributes as well, very important, to trying to differentiate yourself. I was talking in the first chapter about this healthy competition, about staying ahead of the curve, so to say. How do you stay ahead of the curve? How do you hit the ball out of the park? This was one of our favorite COO quote when we are doing session C, saying, why is he a top 20? Did he hit the ball out of the park? So that means, how do you hit the ball out of the park? Not only performance wise. Yes, performance, you do great and your teams are doing great and all the KPIs metrics are achieved. But how do you differentiate yourself beyond that? What can you do from your end beyond that helps you lead, that helps you develop and grow and helps the organization move further, which will then become a recognition for your effort and talent and skill and will help you grow in your career. So I think and last but not least, we were talking about candor and about change. Change is very important. Take the feedback with candor and change. No questions asked. At the end of the day, even if feedback, this is also another lesson I learned, even if feedback sometimes is subjective and you tend to say, yeah, but it's not like that and so on. Perception is king. This is also what I learned the hard way. So even if it's sometimes unfair, if it is a perception, which you need to change it, and you need to in order to change immediately, and don't waste time. Start changing. Start doing something differently. That's the sign.
Yeah. Start acting on it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Doesn't help to complain. Doesn't help to start thinking, hey, where it is coming from? What have I done? But I don't remember. This guy has something against me. No, that's not bringing you forward.
Fair enough.
Right, right. And like within this transition, we all had this transition from individual contributor to leadership. And the dynamic is going to change. And Jack Welch was also describing that when you are individual contributor, you're living in different world, then this transition it's taking you to different. All the problems now it looks different. Also, like in the first 90 days within that book, they discuss about sometimes it's not only when you move to new organization, when you move from one role to another role, the expectation will be different as well. It's whole new ball game that you are entering. What do you guys had experienced for this transition, and what do you would like to share with us?
I have worked as a construction manager. I've worked as a greenkeeper. I've worked in a juice packing plant. I've been a database administrator, system administrator, every form of architect that you could think within an IT organization. And oh my goodness, the different perspectives. It is so interesting when you walk into a new place with new people, I think even sort of a horizontal move within an organization. It's challenging. Talk about stepping outside of the box, not from just a technical perspective, but also from a people management perspective and finding your own footing and finding your own groove. But it is extremely liberating. It's super, super scary. But once you've done that, I think looking back, I wouldn't have done it any other way because you start getting different things. And I think there's one or two greenkeeper analogies that I still use with my daily corporate life. And it's not a wrong perspective to have. It's just a very fresh view. What do you think, Vlad?
I think it it is definitely liberating to see that you're able to do it, and which maybe you're successful in something which you thought you will never be. Usually, the classical thing, as you know, the classical way it happens, you're not getting hired if you don't have similar domain experience, or within an organization, you will never have a chance usually to do something else in a different domain because you don't have that expertise. So people will not have the courage to give you that opportunity. Jack Welch did that. Jack Welch encouraged people to step out of the comfort zone a lot. I had myself, I'm the perfect witness of the fact that while I was in Genpact and I was out of those 12 years almost, I was spending 8 years in operations. I had the opportunity to do a rotation. There was a leadership program named Gold in which operations leaders were placed for 1 year in a functional role, HR, quality, transitions, and so on, and then return to operations with that accumulated experience. It is a fixed rotation. My fixed rotation turned into a 3.5 years role because I liked it. But then, of course, I went back to operations. But I think this principle is not only about empowerment and giving people the trust because they have the potential to eventually do something else. Jack Welch was doing something else. He was letting you find your own failures. And it's not about setting you up for failure, because one of the classical management or leadership rules says, don't give someone a role if you think the person won't be able to do it, because you're setting him up for failure. Jack Welch wasn't doing that. Jack Welch was allowing you to calculately fail so that you learn from your failure, you stand up, you wipe the failure away, and move on and become a stronger leader. So it was a very calculated attempt to make you stronger, not setting you up for failure. In my case, I would say I failed a few times. Okay, not miserably, but I failed a few times. And I had my learnings. I think every leader should fail at least once. It needs to be proved he or she is wrong. Because only by failing you are able to learn. Take calculated risk. This is what one of my bosses say. Don't bet the whole farm, but take calculated risks. But take your own decisions and your own risks and assume it.
Yeah.
Do it, fail or no, but if you fail, stand up, learn from it, and move on.
Yeah, I think it's so ingrained in him. I think I read a quote somewhere where his mom was, like, you punk, if you don't know how to lose, you'll never know how to win. And I mean, it's part of the journey, falling down, scraping your knee every now and again is how we learn to walk, isn't it? And I found this very refreshing, and I like the fact that he was, like you said, not setting you up for disaster or for failure, but making sure that he never misses this opportunity to expand and sort of deepen your team's talent. Because sometimes all you need is a fresh perspective. And it's so cool to actually hear from someone who did this rotation where you try on the new hat and you're like, well, I'll look damn good in that. Maybe I'll wear it for a little bit and see how it goes. Right?
Yep, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, this is something that Jack Welch encountered this question over and over again when it's come to leadership. People was asking him, hey, how should I lead? And he come up with these 8 essential leadership rules. And first, it was like upgrade your team relentlessly, coach them, build confidence, and improve their skill, which we also covered in our previous chapter. And he was mentioning the second things leaders supposed to do: make the vision come alive. People not they should see and live and breathe the mission of the organization that they have. And this is something that also the good leaders will do that. What do you have to say regarding the second point?
From my own experience, if you reach a certain level of leadership, it has two sides of the coin, because you need to obviously embrace and preach and be the ambassador of those values in front of your team and in the organization. But if you want to be a good leader and to be respected and to be loved and to be praised by the people, you also need to stand for the people. It's a very thin line between making yourself, I mean, this is not about choosing sides. If you play only on one side, then you lose the trust of the employees. If you play only for the employees, then you're no and against the company vision, then you're no longer a leader, syndicate leader. Yeah, you become like you're no longer. So it's a thin line between living the values of the company, selling the vision to your team, which sometimes is skeptical, because there are different people think different. If some people are demotivated, I don't know, because they haven't received a salary increase or they have not received the bonus as they would have hoped or expected, they will start don't really giving much about giving a shit about the company mission. This is why it is very important to keep your people engaged and keep them happy and also financially happy. I think Jack Welch also mentioned that it's okay, non-monetary recognition and praise is very important, but also monetary. If you really want to have your people go and go beyond, you need to reward them also properly, monetary. So I think those were the most important things that I have found out. So it is sometimes in town halls or when you speak to people and you say, hey, we want to go there, that's our mission, that's our vision, some people start to challenge you and say, yeah, but it's all bullshit, it's all leadership, blah, 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 and so on. And then you need to start to try to convince them that this is not bullshit. Try to convince them that if they play along, they will have more to win than to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Because having this anti-system attitude, it's not going to solve the case. I was telling people I had managers who were coming to me and say, hey, I have those people that are demotivated and so on. And I was telling them something which was sometimes brutal, but I think in certain people, in certain situations, it helped. I told them, nobody is doing us a favor for coming to work. So if they don't find the passion anymore in this company, if they don't find themselves again in this company, first of all, if they're not willing to do something else, maybe they need just to switch the role and maybe they get a different perspective, like you said, Willem. But some people are just demotivated and they don't feel as part of the company. Then leave.
Yeah.
Then leave. Nobody's doing us a favor for showing up to work. There are so many happy places outside where everybody can find his or her own happiness. So I was giving this candid feedback, and sometimes it helped, yeah. But as I said, you can't make everyone happy. Not even always the company, not always the employees. So I read a quote somewhere which I like a lot about this. If you want to make everyone happy, you should become an ice cream seller.
Yes, I've seen that post on LinkedIn.
which is a very interesting job, I would say. If you are unhappy at your company, that would sort of work.
And you have a peak season in summer for sure.
Yes, exactly, guaranteed. Well, at least in my area where I live, because I'll be supporting you every single day. But yes, I also think, just from my end, it is so important on a ship in a very unknown, tumultuous economic ocean. Just everybody understanding that we're doing something for a specific reason, and everything that they do is to end up at a specific destination, is so liberating for someone that works with a company. Whereas sometimes when you speak to people during my consultancy days and they're missing that why am I here? What am I doing? What am I contributing to my team? Where is this mission? Where is the vision that we're heading towards? The lack of it is so crippling to teams, where I think, putting in that effort and, seeing, living, even though sometimes it's hard, and breathing that mission is critical to success.
Yeah, and it's about this empowerment. And as I said, now I think I have the full vision in my mind. So if you give the people the opportunity, this is what Jack said, and they can spread up their wings and fly and do whatever they would like to do, but also put the compensation behind it. So the monetary part, which I mentioned, he said you almost don't need to manage those people, which is actually somehow true. Of course, you need to still manage, because people will then realize, hey, by the way, I can do whatever I want and get a lot of money. But the self-motivation and the self-drive puts those people on an autopilot where you don't need to worry anymore. I mean, you just need to make sure that this autopilot doesn't, I don't know, do something wrong and does a collision, but they
Yes.
technically run for themselves.
Awesome.
Right. And that brings us to the third point: create positive energy. Like Jack Welch, he really emphasized on this, that creating this positive energy is a big deal for a leader, to have a can-do spirit which infects others. We all work with that leader that make things so easy. Looks, yes, this is doable. And that attitude give everybody's energy. What is the experience that you guys had on this point?
Oh, I worked at Puma a couple of years ago. Got the opportunity I was sort of like looking horizontally to integrate into a different department within the organization. I got the chance to work under a guy called Christian Berger. Now, Christian Berger has I would say, not a mentor, but a coach, Vlad, as you sort of like mentioned, which is a nice analogy that I want to use here, as a coach. So a development background. And at that point in time, a couple of decades into his career, he was sort of the global director for business solutions, which was essentially this function underneath the global thing. What he brought from his development background was this experimental culture where he just iterated so fast around strategic ideas, which was the first time that I've actually experienced it at that level of management, where I think we were initially talking about product categorization with the AI models that were out at Google just before ChatGPT broke the internet. And I was talking to him about the concept, and then a week later he was like, "Oh, come over here, real quick." And he had his like little his laptop open with a bit of Java code. And he was like, "Oh, look at this!" And just a very small MVP, this experimental context, adds so much positive energy to a team, because it's not just that you're voicing an idea and having a conversation that goes to a strategical panel that gets reviewed multiple times, and then 6 or 12 months down the line, it is something that people start thinking about. With him, there was an actual using and leveraging his background to quickly just look at an idea, quickly try something out. And that positive energy, I really, really appreciate it. Maybe it just resonated with me. I'm a bit of a techie at heart, but absolutely loved it. That was a super awesome experience. What about you, Vlad?
So in a nutshell, yeah, what I experienced was, wherever I have worked in any of the roles with any of the teams I have led, to make people to get the motivation, it starts with saying thank you for the smallest things. Quite often, a tap on the back, a thank you note. I was literally putting written cards, handwritten with thank you notes, on people's desks, just saying that I appreciate or I observe something that I like, and keep on doing things. besides the regular town halls, and obviously there were recognitions and so on, saying thank you, praising, going and talking to people, sitting amongst people, going on the floor and not sitting behind your corner or in your closed cabin. Go and sit on the floor with the teams. Mingle with the agents, mingle between the agents. It helps a lot because it's not about observing. And some people may say, the big boss came and is looking at us. What if you are working?
Yes.
Is micromanaging us.
Yeah, I'll tab out of
it's
solitaire.
about exactly. It's about getting the feel, getting the vibe of the team, seeing how they are, seeing are they talking to each other, are they engaged, are they working as a team, or are they just siloed? Of course, sometimes you're able to, you unfortunately, you're negatively influencing that because everybody's behaving, everybody's sitting quiet and working at their corner because they don't want to stand out in any way. But taking it up for a coffee or for a smoke, speaking to those people, having those skip level meetings, being open and actually being human. I think it's just showing the human side of you because people are reluctant when they see a senior person in the room, especially when he's the lead of the department or of the group. They have like big fear that they will be misperceived or this person will do, I don't know, will act negatively. And I think you just need to change this perception. Usually when you show that you're human and that you're genuine, people start to open up and people start to be themselves.
Exactly.
And this is what I experienced in BBG, to your point, Mehdi, right?
Right.
I showed people that I'm not like a stiff old school manager or micromanager in some cases, right? Which I have experienced recently before I left BBG. But at the end of the day, that's what changes everyone's mindset completely. It's not a
Indeed.
magical recipe. It's just being human, just being genuinely human, I think.
I know. And this style of management that you going around is like known also as management by walking around or moving around, and it's come from Abraham Lincoln, that he was doing this and he was going around and like mingling with people in order to know the problem firsthand. And this is really great. It's coming over and over again. Also in Radical Candor, there was example of this, that hey, you need to go there and make connection with people, give them feedback frequently and everything. It makes perfect sense.
I mean, it segues like directly into the fourth principle as well, where it's all about sort of like establishing trust through candor. And Vlad, I mean, it's honesty, just be human, accept that we're going through something, if we're going through tough times, we're going through tough times, but people respect that in the end.
Exactly. And I think there is one thing very important. Mm-hmm. If you're the captain of the ship and the situation is dire, never show this to your people. You need to be calm and keep yourself at brace. Don't show to the people that the situation is dire, because then also people will follow and then the whole thing will make it even worse, right? So even Jack Welch was of the same opinion. Then when you do crisis management, right, which is important because you have all these situations, stay calm, play normal, don't pass on the worry and the fears towards your people, because this will hit you back hardly.
Understood.
Very true. Very true. In crisis management, he explicitly mentioned always keep that coldness within you. And also when it's come to this established trust and through candor, he was mentioning you need to say things honestly and early. Don't wait on it. This is like feedback shouldn't be on something yearly or monthly basis. It should be on day-to-day basis.
You are right. This is one of the most common mistakes that a lot of leaders and managers are doing. When you observe something and you need to give a feedback, give it then. Not just because you're forgetting. Maybe you have a brilliant memory or you can even write it down, but don't wait for a specific moment. Because if you give feedback, usually it's being said that feedback is a gift. This may sound a bit overrated, but it is actually a gift, because if you give the person the feedback then, by the next time you do a performance appraisal, he or she might have the chance to work on that and improve something.
Yeah.
If you wait until that moment and you give it then, it's fair enough, you can give it, but it doesn't bring any value. You will disappoint the person saying, hey, if you observed that like 3 months ago, why haven't you told me? I wasn't aware, I could have done something, and now you're punishing me and putting this in my appraisal and giving me a bad rating, let's say, or stating a constructive note that I have not displayed this and that, or I have not done this and that, right? Although if I would have noticed I need to do that, if you have told me, I would be able to influence it, and by the review, you might have had a different positive perspective on it. And people are afraid of giving tough feedback. And procrastination is like, let's wait, maybe it gets better, it fixes itself, or I will tell it later, let's wait for the appraisal, blah, blah, blah. And it actually makes it worse.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the analogy that Kim Scott was using in Radical Candor, he was mentioning like it's like brushing your teeth in daily basis rather than wait to teeth get cropped and go and do the root canal.
Which is fair. Yes, agree. Is absolutely fair.
Right. And that brings us to fifth point and for leadership rules, which is make unpopular decisions. Sometimes you need to make those unpopular decisions that make you looks like a bad guy, but that's what it is.
I can relate to that. I had 2 or 3 times in my professional career, again in Genpact, because there was all those things were happening, when we had a contract pullback from a customer, where I had to stand in front of my people, like groups between 30 and 60 people, and tell them, guys, in 3 months from now, you will not work for this customer anymore, because this customer is pulling the contract. You can imagine that this is a tough discussion, because it hits people. Some people take it immediately negative because they fear for their job. Some other also have emotional attachments and have a comfort zone, maybe working for those customers. There is an identification process maybe with those customers. They feel that they belong to this team and so on. Luckily, I didn't have to let people go, because Genpact at the time was a growing organization. It was a large team. So for most of the people, we were able to find similar roles in other projects. So that wasn't an issue. I mean, a few ones left by themselves because they didn't want to continue anyway. And they realized, hey, by the way, I wanted to do a change. So let's use this opportunity, cash in the bonus and go. So some people prefer that. But in principle, for most of them, we were able to find roles. And it is also a direct responsibility of the leader to work directly with HR and to make sure that everybody gets a job. This is not an HR job only.
Yeah.
HR, go and fix it. You have your openings, go and place the people. No, you need to step in, talk to your peers, talk to your network in the company, actively ask, hey, by the way, I have 2-3 good people. We are losing the contract. Do you have maybe 2-3 openings in your team, or 2-3 roles for those people? Even sell yourself some of those good people. This is also something I experienced in Genpact. We were doing this between peers as leaders, asking for people when we had new openings or new projects, trying to sell people, hey, I have 2-3 people at risk, won't you have something for them? Because those discussions happened in between the session Cs. So in between those 6 months reviews, where you would naturally discuss that, right? So that sort of peer connect and networking, it also helps you place talents. And the thumb rule is very give and take. If you want, you need to give.
Yes.
It goes both ways. So it's not like you ask for people, you never give some people back. And to stay with this point, I want to share something which was a practice that in some cases happened. Spoiled gifts. Spoiled gifts is like when I ask you, Willem, to give me someone because I need someone, and you give me one of your not so good performance because you want to get rid of him.
One of the 10%ers.
Yes, maybe not. But some of the low potential
Yeah, I hear you.
People who just made it above the bar of the 10%. They're still in the HV70, but in the lower part, right? And then you want to get rid of the people because you don't see the value. And let's give it to Vlad. This kind of tainted gifts we were trying to avoid, and our leaders always were saying, don't do that. If you wouldn't take it, if you wouldn't like that person for yourself, or if you wouldn't like to take it in, why give it to someone else? Why pass on the burden and pass on the problem to someone else instead of fixing it yourself? If the guy is no good, then make it him a 10 and show him the door.
Yeah.
You don't need to drag someone and just pass on the problem from one place to another.
Yeah,
Wow.
So, yeah.
It's so detrimental to company mechanics if you think about it. And what I'm sort of getting from this as well is that, yes, make the unpopular decisions, but you do not get to walk away from the accountability for it. It is still your decision. You made it. You need to deal with the consequences as a leader, which I think is very refreshing in today's day and age, is to actually hear about a company that done that, and that is part of their core company mechanics. That's, yeah, awesome to hear.
Right. And the next point was asking questions that lead to action. People was coming to Jack Welch and was asking for advice that, hey, people in my team are smarter than me. How can I lead that team? And he was saying the good leader asking proper question to lead to action. Sometimes a characteristic of good leader to be dumbest person in the room. You are enabling the team to reach their full potential. You're not doing the job yourself. And this is a mistake that I can see, especially leaders that they don't have enough experience. They feel like when they go to the room, they need to show that they know it all. And that is undermining the expertise of their team. And it's also feel them like that, hey, they don't see my value at all. What is your experience on this area?
I can start with my first months in Genpact. When I joined Genpact in 2008, I joined as an operations manager for a 30, 40 people, something like that team, doing accounts payable for another big global customer, the competition of GE, named Honeywell, another big US company at the time. And we were servicing entities from Germany, Netherlands, France, Italy, and so on, and Switzerland. The team which I inherited was almost in disarray. In the first 2 days after my onboarding, I was on the floor. I didn't even get to meet the team. I had 2 people coming to me and putting the resignation on the table saying, Vlad, nice to meet you. It's nothing against you. This is my resignation. Ciao. Fluctuation was up to the roof. I was the third or the fourth operations manager joining during that year, and I was joining in November. During that year, the team, one of the German stakeholders from Honeywell Aerospace, who was the finance controller in Raunheim, he refused to meet me. Our NPS score was 0, and he refused to meet me, saying, why should I meet this guy? He will also leave like the others in a few weeks already. So in that setup, there was a freshly promoted senior agent to management trainee, so not the team lead, who was she was a 45 years old woman or something, because all the other guys were quite young. She had an accountant background. She knew what she's talking about. She was struggling a bit with German because our main customer was German speaking. So I joined the team and I had absolutely no real clue about accounting and accounts payable, about month-end closing and a statement of accounts and accruals. I had no clue. I was the dumbass in the room, and I was more senior than her. I was supposed to manage her. So what I did is I sat with her and I told her, Christina, please show me and teach me accounting. If you want my help, of course I can help you from managing the team, but help me understand what the hell we are managing here. So why are we failing against the KPIs and the SAL? So I put myself on the table and I said, Christina, I don't know accounting. Sorry. From a domain perspective, I cannot manage you. You can manage me. So let's work together and understand and make this team be successful. So this is what we did. So it's not a shame to admit you're not knowing things. It's a prestige thing. Of course, some people would say, no, I will show weakness if I'm the great leader and say I don't know this and that. But that's totally wrong, because people will get you anyway.
Yeah.
When it comes to nitty-gritty details and domain expertise, and when you do a review and you don't understand what those people are talking about in regards to metrics, numbers, and KPIs, and you don't know what triggers to action to improve performance, then it shows that you have no clue what you're managing from a domain perspective.
Exactly. Okay. I think it's also something that I find challenging, because the way I work is I create platforms for companies to share and work with their data. And there's no realistic way that I know each and every single domain within a company, because although they're shared, every company looks a little bit different. And fine, fair enough. You just have to deal with the realization at some point in time you're sitting in the meeting and you don't really know much about the subject matter. And that's why you have your team there. That's why you have your tribe. I mean, they're there. They work with this. They know it. They live it. They breathe it. Why would you not give them that voice to essentially challenge them to think critically without sort of dictating what you need to do, right?
Very true. Very true. Great. And the seventh rule was inspire risk-taking and learning, which we already covered. And the last was celebrating the paradox and ambiguity, because this is not an easy 7 rule that if you know it all, you can manage. No, there are so many things there is a paradox that, hey, the rule saying this and you need to do the total opposite, and the rule saying this and you need to do total opposite. And this is something really dynamic that it comes with the experience and everything, which make the leadership is bit messy and challenging. It's not, you need to get comfortable and balancing this conflict in a way to really show and set your team to get the result that you're aiming for.
Definitely. I mean, life is complicated by its very nature. It's just full of weirdness, eh? With people, with technology, with processes. You do the best you can. This is where I think the lens of experience becomes very valuable.
Very true. Very true.
Okay.
Then there are other stuff that in this book, Jack Welch share his experience. He have been like engaging with, let's say, hiring process. He come and share his insight and his way of shortlisting people that, let's say, he's always looking for 3 attributes within the candidate: in intelligence, maturity, and integrity. It's something that he always looking for. It's for every candidate. And he have also introduced a model called E and 1P. 4E being like, the 4E is energy, energizing others, having the edge, and execution. And the P being the passion. When it's come to hiring, what do you guys have as an anecdote to share with us?
I'm working in BBG. I'm part of the data governance team there. And I get approached by Christian Fernandez, one of your customer service agents. And he comes to me and says, like, hey, listen, so I spoke to the powers that be, and I'd like to try something new. I'm very, very interested in cybersecurity and these kind of things. Do you have a project that we can collaborate on? It's quite interesting speaking to someone like you, Vlad, in a situation like this, where you talk about these kind of things, about how you try to bring these values into a team. But it's a completely different thing to have someone from your team sort of come to me and says, hey, listen, I want to try this something new. This is my passion. And I'm empowered by my team to essentially do these kind of things. That was freaking awesome, because one, there's an immediate energy from his side. He also has this very can-do attitude with regard to that. Very much looking for that edge. He's got this capability to execute. And you can see sort of the passion. So, I mean, from my perspective, it is quite interesting to see that how your management style then essentially translates to like different layers within your team to essentially have exactly what I would look for if I were to employ someone within my team to do a specific function within, the 4 E's and the 1P. It's almost as though you bake it in already, which is a little bit of a cheat code, yeah.
Came to me with the question,
Yes.
very scary, asking if he can go
Yeah.
and try something else and talk to people. And I have encouraged him to talk to you and to Megana. With you, I haven't talked about that. But with Megana, I have reached out to her and told her, look, I have Christian from my team. He will come and talk to you. Please tell him what you guys are doing and see if you can have something for him. Maybe even even for job shadowing, not even for a role, right? So
It's amazing. No, keep shipping them out with the four E's and one P. We'll keep hiring them. Don't worry.
yes, or you give me some of those.
Well, it's a give and take. Didn't we just say it's a bit of a give and take, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Give and take. Sure thing.
Right. And yeah, it's like still when it's come to hiring, he also give 4 more characteristics when it's come to high level executive. That authenticity is something that is quite important, especially when it's go to a high level executive. Seeing around the corners means being able to anticipate before things happen is another characteristic that he was looking when it was coming to really high executive. Love to work with smarter people than themselves, because this is a characteristic you want that leader look for people smarter than himself. And if it does not have that characteristic, that team cannot reach their pinnacle of achievement. And last but not least, emotional intelligence, that it's supposed to have that emotional intelligence when it's come to really high level executive to be able to lead. Like when it's come to people, GE demonstrate how important for them, and like really something that resonate with me when he was talking about showing how important is HR is. And he was believing that head of HR, it should be, if not more important than CFO, it should be same level as CFO, because they are the people that they bring the people. They just make sure they are in right mindset and their career is in the right track. And it's also, this is something that in Good to Great, Jim Collin, it find this characteristic between all the really, really important organization, successful organization, that say successful organization, the analogy that it uses like a bus. They ensure that they have right people on the right seat. Not only bring the right people, but they ensure they're in the right seat. Then you can drive that bus anywhere you want.
Completely agree. Mark Schwartz has this book about getting a seat at the table for CIOs specifically, where this one crystallizing moment where he talks about how you deal with challenges is very important. Because if you look at modern CIOs, it's a flip of a coin. You've got a 50-50 shot of trying to bet on the right horse. And you know what, buddy? Sometimes you're going to get it slightly wrong. You just need to be okay with it. And as long as you've got that experience and you can apply it to your strategy, seeing around the corner might be a little bit easier than we think it is.
Very true. Very true.
All right.
Yeah, I would say absolutely amazing. Some of the books we've mentioned here, again, have a look at the description. You'll find some good links in there. Thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you in the next chapter.